Okay. Welcome in everybody to the initial episode of Sports with Doc and Dudes. Really excited about this collaboration and opportunity for the four of us to get together and hopefully provide some great content around sports, which kind of came out of our interaction with each other here in the sport management program at Texas Tech University. So just kind of want to lay out the format that we're going to follow here for our episodes, which is really each of us will bring a story for the other three to break down and get their reactions to. And we don't know what anyone else is coming with. So it'll kind of be a good, organic, just off the cuff way for us to get our thoughts and reactions to different sports stories. And just really excited about this collaboration and hopefully looking forward to seeing where this goes and growing it. So I think what we'll start with is each one of us kind of giving a little introduction about ourselves and kind of who we are and a little more about us. So I'll go ahead and start with that. So my name is Jimmy Sanderson. I would be the doctor in the group here, assistant professor in sport management at Texas Tech University, where I do research related to social media and issues that it has in the sports industry. And then also research on health and family and dynamics within the sports industry as well. Teach a variety of courses in our undergraduate and graduate program, and just really looking forward to having this podcast and getting a chance to be with each of you. So I'm just going to go left to right on my monitor here. So Dwayne, we'll kick it to you for them, and then Preston, then Dustin.
All right, so I'm Dwayne Soto. I'm in my second year of the sport management program. I've had classes with Preston both and Dustin both, and then some classes with Dr. Sanderson as well. I'm kind of in a unique situation, coming from being a teacher and a coach. I did that for 9 years, and after COVID hit, decided to step away, and it's been one of the best things that I've done is stepping away and kind of just reevaluating everything. But yeah, I'm from Idalou, grew up from there, graduated from Tech in 2012. So yeah, that's a little bit of my background.
All right, awesome. Idalou's finest. Preston,
Don't
go
say
ahead.
that too loud.
Hello, everybody. Please ignore that blinding light to my left. It just means my future is bright, but that's besides the point. But hi, my name is Preston Perez. I'm a graduate student here at Texas Tech, second year like Dwayne. I'm from Greenwood, Texas, right outside of Midland. I have a big background in football. I've coached, I've played all throughout high school. I've coached here at Texas Tech with the strength staff under Coach Dave Scholes. My big goal is to become an NFL GM, starting off as a scout, and we'll see how that goes. So
Awesome. Great to have you with us. That's actually a good 80s song. The future's so bright, I got to wear shades, but I don't think I'm probably the only one who would know that. So
that's why I got it, man.
There you go. Yeah. Love it. Love it. All right, Dustin.
Hey guys, my name is Dustin Ladd. I'm the third dude, I guess you could say. I graduated from Fritz, Texas. I was in the military for a long time. But one thing we always kept in charge of was the sports realm. Kind of an old school guy, so I will be the resident random sports stories. Oh, that's it. That's all I got.
All right. No, that's awesome. So, all right. So with that out of the way, Preston, let's start with you. What do you got for us this week?
Okay, this week I'm going to talk about something that Mr. Primetime Deion Sanders said while he was at Jackson State. You know, he's been a real big vocal voice over there for the HBCUs. He was talking about guarantee games and how he hopes guarantee games, while necessary now, especially for these smaller schools, he's hoping they'll be a thing of the past. And some of the things he said was right here. You know, he says, let's see here. He said, all money ain't good money. He says, we're supposed to lose by all accounts. We're not doing this to be in the game. We're doing it to get paid. Why get paid to get beat, right? He's like, I don't think getting beat does any good for anybody. It ruins morale and stuff like that. So I think that's just very interesting. Like I said, he's coaching at Jackson State. It's not Ohio State. It's not USC. It's not Texas that's raking in all this dough. Yet he sees, a fault with it, even though it's a necessary evil per se. And do you kind of agree with him that guarantee games should be a thing of the past? And if there is anything we can do to make that a thing of the past. So I'm just curious with that.
Man, I don't think you can get rid of guaranteed games. A college like where's he at? Jackson
Jackson State.
Jackson State. They don't have the money to be able to field a successful program. Well, you saw one of those HBCUs. They're Alcorn State. They're supposed to play tonight. They weren't able to work out a couple of days, or it may have been last week. They weren't able to work out a couple of days because they didn't have any trainers. So I think it's kind of like you said, Preston. It's a necessary evil, and I don't think they're going away. It keeps with excitement because every once in a while, once a season, those money games, there's a big upset. So I don't think they're going away in anytime soon.
Well, I'll jump in. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a really interesting dilemma. On one hand, yeah, the criticisms I've seen about them are like injuries, right? So you have these schools that go play the powers, and they're, with all due respect, they just don't match up athletically, right? And so, and oftentimes the games are out of hand early on. Even though their starters still might be playing, they're playing against the lesser, the second and third string of the power schools or whatever. But I know injuries is certainly something to think about. But I think really what it comes down to, and kind of Dwayne, to your point, is it's really just a survival mechanism for these schools. I mean, when you look at the payouts that they get, it really funds not only their football program, but oftentimes the rest of their athletic department. Like they need those guarantee games. So yeah, I mean, they're not competitive, although ask Florida State how they feel about them, after Jacksonville State beat Florida State a couple of weeks ago, which as a Clemson fan, I loved seeing that. So, there's very little risk for the power schools, right? But I think for these littler schools, they certainly need, it's a revenue generator that they need to sustain their athletic departments. Now with Primetime and his comments, yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see if he attracts, higher caliber talent to a place like Jackson State, and we start to see maybe some of athletes committing more to the HBCUs, then we could potentially see some changes here. But yeah, I guess for me, it's like that. When you're talking about having to fund an athletic department, if you're a Jacksonville State or a Savannah State or an Alcorn State, I mean, the media money is not there. So you have to look for it elsewhere. And those guarantee games are kind of where you have to go to get that, at least for now.
What was the famous game in 2007? Big Blue.
Michigan.
Oh yeah.
Appalachian State.
And App State, yeah.
2007, right? So Michigan comes in ranked number 5 in the FCS, or the FBS, I apologize. Appalachian State came in ranked number 1, right? Final score was 34-32. So Michigan came in. This was such a lopsided game that Vegas didn't even have a line on back in 2007. So the thing you're thinking right now is, this is the number 1 school in FCS going against an FBS school. That I can see. But when it comes to places like Alabama playing Southern Mississippi College of Cosmetology and Tire Changing, that's when you kind of draw the line. I think it's good. I think that they really need to look at their. A lot of coaches will go coach against their alma mater if they're FBS schools. That's a big thing. I know that Saban did that for a little bit. But the big thing is when you get these huge schools that go play these lower level FCS, if they're not ranked in the top 10, I don't think they should even be considered for playing against these FBS schools, because you're looking at lopsided victories of, we've seen anything from 72-0, 57-0. I think it's killing morale for these FCS schools because they walk in thinking, man, we're going to get crushed. But any given Saturday, anybody can win. The big thing though is I think it's a money generator, but I think that they need to look at where, how those teams actually rank up.
Mm-hmm. I mean, back to what I actually discussing this with one of my good friends, Alex Montez. Shout out to Alex Montez because he did help me bridge this topic and kind of discuss it. He said all it takes is one recruit 5-star, 4-star to go there. And Dion can bring those guys. And as soon as that first one goes, that second one will come, that third one will come, and then the media is gonna follow him. So I think Dion's got a point. Right now, it's a necessary evil, but I could see it going the way of the past. If he sticks at Jackson State and he's able to recruit these big time guys, it could be a thing of the past where, those HBCUs or even smaller schools, maybe, especially with NIL, like you can make your own money just on your name alone. It's not necessarily you're tied to a university or you're tied to a brand. You can make money on your own with your own brand. I think guarantee games could go the way of the past.
Yeah. Well, and no, go ahead, Dustin. Sorry.
Dion actually has both his sons playing for him. And his son came highly touted with D1 offers, and he went with his dad to Jackson State. I think that's pretty cool. His other son wasn't as highly recruited, but plays defensive back. He's got a really good series that's on Bleacher Report about rebuilding that program. And actually, one of the episodes I watched was he's talking about the practice field, how the practice field had divots everywhere, and so it's bad for these athletes. But that's where Doc came in and said that, when you're using this money to fund all the rest of your sports and everything like that, and it's going towards football fields and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting too, because it's oftentimes lower level Division I schools too. So, like Montana just beat Washington this I think that was week 1 where Montana, they may have, I don't think it was in the millions, it was in the hundreds of thousands, but they went in and beat Washington. So, I mean, I think there could be some parity. It could start to even out with certain schools, right? Because even group of 5 schools will take some payouts to go play some of the Power 5. But I also wonder about like if the college football playoff expands, which I know they're talking about right now, and they let more teams in the college football playoff, then maybe some of these teams like Alabama, because Clemson, like they just played South Carolina State 2 weeks ago. Maybe with more opportunity to get into the playoff, we'll see less of those games and they'll go play other Power 5 schools in the non-conference as opposed to, some of those guarantee type games. So that could be something to watch too.
And I think going back to what Preston was saying, get all you need is that one guy, 1 5-star. And I think Dion has kind of positioned himself with the coaching staff he has. He's got a ton of NFL guys. They bring the clout. I mean, really, I can't remember just right off the top of my head some of the staff, but I know he went out and got NFL guys. So just that name notoriety is going to help Dion. And this is his second year there. The first year was a COVID year, and then this is his second full year. So I think once he gets firmly planted and gets the program the way he wants it, I mean, there's no telling. And just his name brings a whole lot of notoriety. Kids are going to want to go play for that guy.
Arguably the best corner in
I think
NFL.
Lovell Cooper has a kid playing for Jackson State.
They do, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So Lubbock, Texas to wherever Jackson State is at.
Is it Jackson, Mississippi?
Okay,
Yeah.
so again, that's going to pull guys. Hey, a guy from Lubbock Cooper's there. I may look into it. Oh, well, there's starting offensive lineman from Coronado's there also. So, 2 guys from Lubbock, that may pique somebody's interest. A kid from here, it may pique their interest to go play out there. So, yeah.
All right, guys, that's the time limit on that one. So let's go to final answers. Preston, what do you got? Yes or no?
Yeah, I think I guarantee games. I think we'll go with the way of the past. It's just a matter of time, especially what Dion's doing for things to kind of shift, especially with the
Preston,
NIL and how.
Okay.
You're not
Dwayne, what
tied
do you got?
I don't think they're going to go away. I think it's, Preston alluded to it earlier. It's a necessary evil. And Dr. Sanderson said it too. It's got to fund, you got to get money from somewhere, and playing 1 or 2 of those football games a year is going to help.
Doc?
Yep. Say no. It's a no for me unless they find a way to replace that revenue somehow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Dwayne, what do you got next?
All right. So what I'm going to talk about, it happened, I guess, week 1 of the college football season. And it's got to do with Navy. Navy, they're 0-2. And they fired their OC after the first game. They fired their OC. They got beat by Air Force 23-3. and the AD came out. The AD did it essentially. He did it on his own. Went behind Nehemiah Tolo's back and fired the OC. Well, a couple hours later, Nehemiah Tolo came out and was like, I had nothing to do with it. I was not involved with any of that. He's like, I wanted him on staff. You know, the offensive coordinator had been there, 10 plus years. And Navy's not a powerhouse by any means, but they're going to compete. They're going to compete with other D1 schools. So just the way the AD went behind his back, behind Nehemiah Tolo's back, fired the offensive coordinator, and then like a day or two later came back and was like, oh, no, we screwed up. We only meant to fire him as the offensive coordinator. We want him to stay on as quarterbacks coach. So they rehired him. So I don't think if I got fired, I got fired. You're a coach. We've all been coaches. If I don't fit the program anymore, let me know. Fire me. We're good. Don't backpedal and be like, oh, we screwed up. Hey, we want you to come back and coach the quarterbacks. So I don't think I could go back and be like, oh yeah, I don't think I could do it. I just couldn't do it to go back and coach a position group only. My coordinator position got stripped from me, but I'm still the quarterback coach. I couldn't do it. And like I said, we've all coached in the public level or in at the high school level, Preston and Dustin. So we've all done it. I'm just curious what you guys think. Like what would you do in that situation? And granted, high school, college, it's different, but it's kind of the same because we got to win. If the coach doesn't win, he's going to get fired. So I'm just curious on what y'all's opinions are on that.
Yeah, it's a really awkward situation. I bet everybody's walking on eggshells there. I mean, for the AD to go behind, the head coach's back and fire a guy that's part of his staff. I mean, that relationship between head coach AD, no matter the sport, has to be a solid one, or you're not succeeding at any level, let alone college. So I can only imagine what that relationship is right now. I mean, and truly, I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of the season, the Navy coach goes, you know what, I'm resigning. If I can't trust you to, trust in my staff and trust in, yes, we're 0-2, but there's 10, 12 games in a season. If you can't trust me to turn the ship around, why am I even here? Yeah.
I mean, it sends so many shockwaves through the whole program. Because now the coach doesn't even have final say so in his own staff.
Right.
So now just instead of doing your job good, now you got to worry about the AD coming down on you and the coach not being able to give you any kind of formal warning and saying, hey, man, watch out. Now, military, when we have games against each other, they're always really big. And the Air Force and Navy is a huge one. That's always a real big one. So I still don't understand it, but that's like Texas losing to Oklahoma, all eyes are going to be on you for that alumni. But still, I mean, that'd be like the dean coming down to tell me that, hey, you're kicked out without my program director being able to say, hey, you need to fix your stuff. So that's what I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting case just from an organizational perspective, because like when you circumvent somebody in the chain of command, right, whether that's going below you or going above you, it's risky and can create a lot of problems in the organization. So I think here you look at it and you say, and I apologize, Dwayne, I'm impressed that you can say is it Nehemiah Tololo? Like you just rattled that off like it was nothing. So I'm not going to be as good there with that, but like he's been there a long time. Like he's been there a long time. So I'm a little surprised given his tenure there that this is what the AD would do. It clearly to me, it just screams mixed messaging, right? Because it's like, so if I'm just reading this, like, oh, here's what happened. Like the AD did it, didn't tell the coach got mad. The coach has allies, the coach has tenure. And so now the AD's got to fix it in some sort of PR type patchwork thing. And I mean, and seriously, like, okay, you sucked as the offensive coordinator, but we want you to coach our quarterbacks. Like, okay, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. So, yeah, I mean, it's just, and these are the things with these organizations, right? If you don't have a good culture, if you don't have really clear, chain of command, and which I'm surprised with the Naval Academy, like the chain of command, that's like Dustin, you can speak to that, more than me, but so of all places for that to happen, it just seems really ironic to me that it was one of the service academies. But
Yeah.
I do think it bears watching, because I know Nehemiah Tololo's, like, he was in the mix for BYU's job, for U of A's job, and he stayed there. So it kind of makes you wonder, is he going to stick around, given how long he's already been there, and then this kind of thing. So, but yeah, now you have to worry about the whole culture of the program. Like, if you're a staff member, like, are they just going to throw you under the bus? Right. And let's be honest, the service academies are dealing with limitations and restrictions that the other, schools don't necessarily have to deal with. Right. So it would seem like you would really, continuity in that would be very important there, and culture would be very important there. So just really kind of a curious move to make from the AD, I would say.
Right. So it gets better. Last week again at the Naval Academy, they fired one of their coaches, on-field coach, offensive assistant. They fired him because he wouldn't get the COVID vaccine. So they have pie on their face already, having to backpedal with the offensive coordinator. Now they're back in it because they fired that offensive assistant because he wouldn't get the COVID vaccine. And not getting political or anything, but here's a quote from the Naval Academy. The Naval Academy policy regarding COVID-19 requires all coaches and staff to be vaccinated against the virus. Based on my religious convictions and after much thought and prayer, I am unable to follow the requirements of the Naval Academy's policy. So, and that was the coach's quote. So again, not to get political or anything, they're already look bad in the public eye for firing the offensive coordinator and then having to backpedal and then rehire him. And then a couple days later, a week or so later, they fire one of their offensive assistants for not getting the COVID vaccine. So, yeah, there's a bunch of stuff going on right now at the Naval Academy, both good and bad. So they're like it or not, they're in the public eye right now.
Well,
And like I said, not to get go
kind
ahead.
of to talk on that, the Department of Defense has made it mandatory for every soldier in
Right.
the United States military to have that shot. So I think if you work for, the Navy, the Army, the Marines, anybody like that, I mean, that's just kind of like
Part of it.
You gotta fall in line with that. Like, I get all these public universities, they have choices. Military, you don't have a choice. You're property of the US government. So if you take that job, you kind of gotta go in with that. So that I can understand a little bit more, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's a bunch of stuff going on right now at the Naval Academy, and it'll be interesting to follow it the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, and I think this is kind of another sideline to this is, we're seeing, and I'm surprised it's happened at the Naval Academy, but a lot of college athletic directors or administrators, we're seeing much less patience with coaches, right? So it's like they'll hire. I mean, we have a number of coaches who've been fired after a year and a half, 2 years, and you have to ask yourself, like, is that really enough time for a coach to come in, take over a program? Obviously, they're coming in because there was some issue or something happened. In most cases, not necessarily every case, but in most cases, right? So then I would argue you need at least 2 or 3 years to get your own recruits in there and develop them. And yet we have a number of cases like Willie Taggart and Chad Morris and down the list of coaches who are just getting blown out, with really short track record. So I think that's something to worth watching, because if you keep turning over key positions like that, that's not good for your organization either, right? So
Yeah.
so any other last thoughts on that? That was a good one. I enjoyed
I
that.
mean, I'm just curious, is that AD, is he brand new to that position? Because I feel like, being brand new, you want to right the ship for like them, not to be punny because they're new, but like you want to right the ship right away. Is he a brand new AD that like is
I
barely
don't
coming
know.
in?
I don't know if he's brand new. I don't know. I guess I should have looked at that, but I don't. I don't know. I don't know how long he's been there.
Because I mean, that's the only way I could see him doing, like, I don't want to say justify, but I could kind of get his rationale. Maybe he's a little antsy to kind of right the ship, a little antsy to kind of
No.
make big changes now. I mean,
Yeah,
it's a process. Like Dr. Sanderson said, and we've all been coaches. It takes a process to develop a team, especially at the college level, to get your recruits.
yeah.
So I don't know if
that's
it's just
a
the
good one.
culture in the society, this instant gratification, or if it's just he wants to come in and make his changes now. That way, it's his team, it's his
Yeah.
program per se.
Yeah. So actually the AD has been the AD at Navy for 20 years.
Oh,
You see, and that's kind of the Clay Helton deal that we talked about in our last one. Is like, if this guy isn't the guy, then why is he continually there year after year? If I'm not the guy, I'm just not the guy, and let me move on with my life.
yeah. And the OC have been there like 15 years. So yeah,
Yeah, because Nehemiah Tololo's been there. He took over when Paul Johnson went to Georgia
Yeah.
Tech, which has been ages ago. So I mean, he's been
Yeah.
there a long time too. So yeah. It's just I don't know. It's definitely going to be. I'm sure it's not the greatest vibes right now over
No.
there in that
especially
program.
0-2.
Yeah,
They got Houston this week, so we'll see.
and it's weird because they were like, of all the service academies, like Navy was dominant for like years. Like
Yeah.
Army was terrible, Air Force was like average, and now Army's kind of really had this renaissance,
rebounded.
where they're like good again. And so it seems like Navy's kind of gone down into a tailspin. Because like last year, I think it was either the year before or last year, like the first game was against BYU and they lost like 56-6 or 56-3. Like they just got throttled. So I don't know. Something's going on there. I would agree.
Yeah.
All right, so the next story is my story. And I hate to bug on this because it's about another firing. I actually got two stories though. So
That's
the first
good.
story is about the Minnesota Timberwolves. So on Wednesday, they fired the head of their basketball operations, Gerson Rosas, right? And it surprised everybody because it came out of nowhere. Now, the thing is it just the team governor, Glenn Taylor, said, he said in a quote, he said, as an organization, we remain committed to building a winning team that our fans and city can be proud of. That's all he said. He didn't say anything else, which that's a big old blanket statement that everybody, I mean, why would you not say that anyway? Who's somebody gonna say like, look, we're the Timberwolves, we suck for a long time. We're gonna quit sucking. But anyway, so the thing is Rosas was let go. The thing is though, so the draft just happened, right? They just started the draft, the summer league. They just signed Patrick Beverly, and he was responsible for all that. So when the draft was happening, like that was his draft room, that was his war room. So in the 2 weeks, right, Rosas was allowed to make, and this is a tweet from Bobby Marks. In the 2 weeks, Gerson Rosas was allowed to make the Patrick Beverly trade, bring back Jared Vanderbilt, Jordan McLaughlin, and sign first-round pick Leonardo Balmero. Now, 6 days before training camp, Minnesota is looking for a new head of basketball operations, right? So this is a guy who was very intricate in this. So this is a two-part question, right? So A, how long should you go before you fire a guy? With that, I mean, it could have been an internal issue. But then two, who's the big player for Minnesota? It's Karl Anthony Towns, right? He's the big star there. He had a tweet on September 22nd at 2:22 that just said WTF. That was it. So should star players be involved in something like that?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think increasingly, so I would say personally, I don't think so. No, they shouldn't. But the reality of the NBA is that those kinds of players, that the ownership's going to try and keep them happy. So if the ownership doesn't like, if the player doesn't like somebody in a particular position and the ownership perceives that as that could be a deal breaker with that player leaving, then we'll just blow out, you know, with all due respect. I mean, it's easier to replace an operations person than Carl Anthony Towns, you know? So I don't personally like it, but I think we're going to see more of it. But I don't see how you can give someone less than 2 years in that kind of role. That would be my, unless they just do something egregious or they like have the worst draft in the history of basketball. I just don't see how you can make an evaluation on someone in under 2 years, but that's just me.
I mean, it goes back to kind of what we said earlier. I mean, it takes time to build a culture, no matter what the sport, no matter what the level. You got to bring in guys. You got to find a system that works. I mean, yeah, I mean, 2 to 3 years, maybe even 4. I mean, shoot, it took Jimmy Johnson 5 years to turn around the Cowboys, and people thought that was quick. So, back in the day. And, in terms of like players having a say in the NBA, that's more commonplace. I mean, we saw it in Brooklyn whenever, they were looking for a head coach. Who were the two main consultants? Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving were
Mhm.
heavily consulted. Who is the next guy going to be? This isn't the NFL. This isn't NHL. NBA, the players have majority of the power, majority of the say. Shoot, LeBron, pretty much GM for the Lakers or Cleveland Cavaliers, wherever he plays.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
brings people out and takes people out. I mean, that's just reality of the NBA. So
Yeah, I think it's definitely something unique. And I've told you I don't follow the NBA that much really at all. But it's something I did hear about this firing for some reason, probably on Twitter, I imagine scrolling. But it's definitely something I think you see that's just unique to the NBA. Just like Preston said, it's not something that you see at the NFL or Major League Baseball or anything like that. I think it's something definitely unique to the NBA. Just in time with the super teams they're creating. Well, they're kind of just picking and choosing. Not that that doesn't happen. With the damn Yankees, the Yankees pick and choose who they want.
So do the Dodgers.
Yeah, the Dodgers and the Padres too now, but the Padres are a dumpster fire right now. But yeah, I think it's something definitely unique to the NBA, and I don't know. It can stay to the NBA for all I care. Just don't come into baseball. So yeah, definitely unique to the NBA.
Why can't they go to baseball?
I mean, it can happen just because I don't want to see somebody like a Derek Jeter in Brian Cashman's ear saying, "Hey, I don't like playing with Hideki Matsui, man. We need to get rid of this guy." I just don't see. I think baseball dudes are different. Dr. Sanderson knows baseball people are different people. I wouldn't like to see that to come in. Not that it doesn't happen, because I'm sure it does. I mean, look at the Dodgers with man, what
Max Scherzer.
no, the pitcher that's not playing because of all those allegations he's got against him.
Oh, Trevor Bauer.
Yeah,
Trevor
Trevor
Bauer.
Bauer. I mean, he's a guy that people didn't like because of his antics on the field. So I'm sure there was a bunch of talk about him. So I don't know. I just wouldn't like to. I don't want to see it come over to baseball.
I can see it
Yeah,
happening
agree.
already. I mean, Tom Brady is the reason Antonio Brown has a job with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now.
Yeah, that's
That's a
Nobody
good
wanna touch
point.
Antonio
Yeah.
Brown nobody want to touch Antonio Brown with a 10-foot pole. But Tom Brady told Bruce Arians, "That's my guy. We need him in the building." Even though they already
That's
had
true.
Mike Evans, even though they had Chris Godwin, they had Rob Gronkowski. They just add another one. So
Yeah, I mean, and I'm like you, Dwayne. It's really weird because like as a kid, like I watched the NBA probably more than any other sport outside of college football, probably. So I mean, I love the NBA, and then I just can't, I don't know, like I just can't get, I mean, I still follow it here and there, but nowhere near like I used to. And I'm not really sure why that is, but those dynamics are just, I don't know. I don't want to say like some of those players, there's prima donnas in every sport, but
Yeah.
it just seems like the NBA has a higher concentration of prima donnas, maybe.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree. But it's kind of like the Fernando Tatis stuff with him and the guy getting into it in the dugout.
Yeah, Manny Machado. Yeah.
Yeah, Manny Machado. It's I don't know. I don't guess I watch the NBA enough. I wouldn't see that. I don't see that happening in the NBA. I don't know.
All right, yes or no? Preston, should NBA stars be considered in front office moves?
I think they should be to an extent, but they shouldn't hold the amount of weight.
Yes or no?
Yes, yes.
Preston always gives these long-winded answers.
I know. Yeah.
He likes to talk. What do you got, Dwayne? Yes or no?
No.
Doc?
Yep. No for me.
All right. All right. So this is my. Oh, go ahead, Doc. You got one.
Well, we can do your second one. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is my feel-good story, right? I don't know if you guys saw this. So, sportscaster Mark Rosen. He's I've listened to him for a long time. He's at 100.3 in St. Louis Park in Minnesota, right? He does all of the commentary for the Minnesota, College of Minnesota, the University of Minnesota football game, the Gophers, right? Well, recently, on August 30th, he lost his wife to brain cancer. So the head football coach there, he decided that what he was going to do is he had all of his college players write a handwritten letter to Mr. Rosen telling him that, kind of condolences. Well, and Mr. Rosen, in a tweet, he said, so I find these on my desk upon my return today. Handwritten notes of condolences from every Gopher football player, including a very personal one from QB Tanner Morgan, who lost his dad to brain cancer recently. So Coach Fleck, I think you guys all know Coach Fleck. He's the one on the sidelines. He's always got a sweater vest on and a tie.
Mhm.
Row the
Probably the
boat.
only coach in
Row the boat.
football.
Row the
that
boat.
Always looking at. But so I thought that was a really cool story from the University of Minnesota. And the question is, why don't we see more stories like this?
I think because that doesn't sell. That's it's not the popular thing to do. The popular thing to put on KCBD is the negative stuff. I mean, yeah, that's unbelievable. That's awesome. But I mean, seeing that or seeing a political post on KCBD, the political post is going to have 1,000 comments, where the Minnesota post is going to have 100, 500 maybe. So to me, it's the whole, it doesn't sell. Yeah, it's going to get likes, but it's not going to funnel the people to the website more than something negative, something bad that's happened in his program.
Well, the only reason that I found it was because I was doing that research on the Timberwolves thing.
Yeah.
And it got me to thinking, and Scott Van Pelt is a big name. ESPN, we talked with Doc's buddy the other day. And it's one of those things to where it's like, man, if they would throw this out there, and Coach Fleck didn't want any notoriety. He had a department spokesperson. They said that Coach Fleck and the team wanted to send their sympathy to Mark and his family. That's the only message here. That we recognize the pain that Mark and his family have experienced and wanted to express our sympathy. So what do you think, Preston?
I think it's kind of what Dwayne said. I mean, it might get some, headlines for, a moment, but, it doesn't sell. I mean, whether it's sports news, regular news, it's always death, destruction, how the world's going to hell in a handbasket. You go outside and birds are chirping, the sky's sunny, like none of it's going on. So it's a sad reality of today. But I mean, it reminds me of that Arkansas State coach that lost his wife to cancer.
Mhm.
And I mean, that was a huge story for, maybe 2 months, and then it just went away. And I think sports is one of those only avenues still that, can bring those stories to us and give us those feel good moments.
Well, yeah, Doc, you've been in this for a long time.
Yeah. So the first thing I would say is like, man, this could be a whole episode on the media, right? Like we don't got time to talk about the media and all that, but let me just try and be brief. Like, so I would piggyback off what Dwayne and Preston said. In my opinion, and I don't care if this offends anybody, I'm just going to say it. Like it's sad. It's sad what the media has become, in my opinion.
Yep.
Like the media, it's all about what kind of stories can drive the most clicks, what can make people feel enraged, what can people, and this outrage. I'm like, when did people get outraged over every little thing that happens in the world, right? And it's because, it drives the clicks, which drives the ad revenue. So it's really a larger problem, I think, with the whole media model and the corporate owned media. But that's for maybe that'll be another episode in and of itself. But I just, yeah. I mean, I wish we had more stories of that, because there's so many, and I feel this like even as an instructor in a class, like I feel like we always are only talking about the bad things that happen. And it's hard to, so sometimes I'll tell myself, I was like, man, I really need to look and bring in some better, like more positive kind of stories. But I think it's just we're inundated with the negative things all the time. And it's just hard to get out of that cycle, at least for me. But I love those kind of stories because they're a reminder that there's a lot of good people in this world, and there's a lot of people that are doing good things, and there's a lot of people in sport that are doing good things. And it's unfortunate that we don't tell more of those stories. I mean, and Preston, your whole thing with Blake Anderson, that was another, like that's a really cool story. Like for Lubbock, the passing of Luke Siegel and the way that some of the Texas Tech teams have like kind of, rallied around, his passing and that. So, and even Pat Mahomes made it, commented on it. Patrick Mahomes commented on it, and did some things. So, and Cliff Kingsbury, I think, is giving $5,000 for every time the Cardinals win. He's giving $5,000 to the Seagulls Foundation. So,
3 of them?
that's right. Yeah. Yeah. So, there's lots of really cool stories out there, and it's just sad they don't see the light of day more.
Yep.
Because a story like that, and this is the last thing I'll say, a story like that doesn't make people feel outraged.
Yeah.
Like
This whole can piss people off. It's all it
yeah.
is.
I mean, so it's like you look at that and you're like, man, that's awesome. They did that. That's a really cool thing. That makes me feel good. You're not outraged. So you don't and that's the problem with in my opinion, the big problem with the media is they just want what can make people feel outraged, so.
And it's like Dustin said, he would have never saw it if he wasn't looking up probably a Minnesota website, if he wasn't looking in a news page on the Minnesota website. I think that's something that should be flipped out to everybody, not just in the state of Minnesota. So yeah, agree, definitely.
I never even heard of it. I mean, I'm kind of glad you brought that up. That's really awesome to hear, So I mean, I'm just disappointed that, a guy like me who keeps, my hand on the pulse per se on sports, I hadn't even heard of it.
I hadn't either.
All right, so that's something new I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring a positive sports story.
I like
I'm
it.
gonna try to.
That's a good one.
I like
I'm
it.
gonna have to look
That
at
was
Rhode
good
Island.
start.
That's
Little
good.
newspaper.
I think all of us should at least bring one positive story,
Yeah, no, that's good. I
Yeah,
appreciate
that was a
that.
good one.
All right. Well, I guess that brings it around to me then. So, so you'll be relieved, because first, what I was going to do is ask you all about the Sixers having the crypto.com patch on their jersey, but we're not going to talk any cryptocurrency. But I am really fascinated by this story, because I think it kind of illustrates kind of larger societal trends that we kind of see through sport. And so this past weekend, Oklahoma, they hosted Nebraska. And the big story coming out of that game was that they didn't have enough workers in the stadium. Like a bunch of people didn't show up for work. So there was long lines, there weren't concession stands that were open, and people were upset, because it was literally taking them 1 quarter to get a drink of water. And so that happened at Oklahoma. I know it happened here at Texas Tech. I know Kirby Hocutt came out after the first game and kind of addressed some of the concerns there. It's happened. I saw University of Texas came out and made a statement about it. I also saw one at University of Arizona. So my question is for you guys is what can these athletic departments do to get people to show? And granted, they're working with staffing companies who staff the stadium and venue workers. So I but we understand that. But like, what can we do? What can they do to get more people to show up to work? I'm just curious what you guys think.
It's funny you say that. Again, going back to the KCBD, right after that happened with the Tech game, a guy commented, of course, because I don't have anything else to do. I like to read the comments. I like to see people go back and forth. So a guy commented and was like, what's the incentive for me being a 17-year-old guy making whatever minimum wage is, $7.25? What's the incentive for me going in to make $7.25 to sell a guy a $15 beer? He's making double what I'm making, and there's no incentive for me, So that's tough. And I think it's not just sports. I think it's everywhere that I don't know. That's a tough one.
Yeah, it is a tough one. I mean, as we speak right now, we're seeing the kind of dynamics between, boss and workforce kind of shift more toward the workforce. You've got to nowadays really, really please your workforce to keep them on, nowadays. So that's really tough. I really don't know what more could be done, but I mean, shoot, me and Dwayne are looking for internships and we're struggling to find some. I mean, if any of these places need help, we're here. So, I mean, there's no other workforce that they can tap into. Ain't that right, Dwayne?
Yeah.
Hey, it's sports related, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you're a nacho connoisseur. That could be your.
Yeah. My advisor would be like, yeah, no, not happening.
Yeah, let me start off with the ticket office. I'll build myself up. How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's tough.
Well, so the unemployment right now is at 5.2%, right? Of course, that's across the nation and everything like that. You're talking about Lubbock, Texas. I mean, I can't drive down
Anywhere.
in Lubbock without seeing now hiring sign.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's
Everywhere.
not about that. It's just that the cost of living has gotten so much higher and unemployment hadn't been able to keep up with it. Or that employment hasn't been able to keep up with it, that it's causing such a diversion tactic that, it's hard to get these people to come into work. Like you said, they're making $7.50 and selling $15 hot dogs.
Yeah.
I mean, Amazon and Google are the two highest paying employers in the nation right now. They're paying $15 an hour. So I think in order to get caught up, I mean, you're just going to have to end up, get more money. And the thing is these are all vendors, it's it's Jay Bourne here in Lubbock, but you got to tell me Jay Bourne has to be making more than
Oh yeah.
that.
Oh yeah.
Because these guys are everywhere all the time. So to make more money, I mean, you just have to, money talks. So I think that's all you can do. So people got to quit lining their pockets and lining their employees' pockets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I just find it a real interesting dilemma because and as you said, Dustin, I mean, it's everywhere that's looking for work. Like this is not just isolated to sporting venues, right? But it's at some level, yeah. I mean, they're going to have to pay people more, and whether that's Texas Tech or Oklahoma or UT going to them and saying you're going to have to increase the rate of pay and eat it, because they can't keep having those kinds of issues at their venue, right? They can't keep having upset people or people in line for one whole quarter trying to get a bottled water. So I think short term that's the solution is to pay more. I think long term, and I could be off base here, but I could actually see this being an area where we see automation take over. And there's just like AI or robots that pour the beers, that make the hot dogs, serve the nachos, and people are completely removed from the equation.
I was about to say that. I mean, especially with this whole pandemic, forcing people at home, giving them free time to learn new skills, to kind of maybe get out of those traditional work roles. Maybe like they realize I can work at home doing something else. NFTs, cryptocurrency, stuff like that. I can make more money doing that than selling hot dogs for $7.25. And that would just force companies to, look for other solutions. And one of those could be automation and eliminating, the human element altogether.
I had seen last week, Ohio State's having the same problem, or they had the same problem. Granted, they're struggling a little bit on the football field, but the horseshoe holds 100,000 people. Well, last week, I think attendance was at like 60,000. So there was a big uproar about that for the same reason, the product on the field and the product that the fans weren't getting while they were waiting in line for a concession stand. I think the students were waiting over 2 hours just to get into the stadium, so doing that and swiping IDs, there's got to be a faster way than swiping an ID. I mean, scan it, do something. But yeah, I mean, they hit Ohio State in the pocketbook. Look, we're not going to the game until that's fixed. 40,000 people spoke up and decided, look, we're not doing it. So granted, Tech and Ohio State are a little different, but other than paying them more, I think it's going to take people say, look, we're not going to the game until something's taken care of. And I haven't been to a Tech game in a long time, so I couldn't tell you. But I think until they start getting hit in the pocket, hey, we're not buying, we can bring our water, we're gonna sneak in a couple extra bottles of water. We're not gonna buy from the concession stand. We're gonna do it on our own. So I think until they get hit in the pocket is when something will get taken care of. Kind of like Dustin said, line your employee's pocket, not yours.
Well, see, Dwayne just said something really good. He just talked about the attendance at Ohio State at the Horseshoe. And this goes back to Preston's first comment, or no, it was Dwayne's comment about the attendance rating, about playing FCS schools. When Ohio State played Oregon, they had 100,000 people there.
Yeah.
When they played Tulsa last week, they only had 76,000.
Yeah, see, that was the game.
Yeah.
So 76,000, yeah.
Right. So that's a thing that also goes back into that FCS conversation is you're losing money playing these small schools. You're paying these schools to get the hell beat out of them, but you're also losing money on the back end. That's not good business anyway.
Yeah.
But to Doc's point about automation, I mean, hell, you can go to Taco Bell right now and order off an automator.
Mm-hmm.
McDonald's, same thing like that. I see that coming faster than anything else. Plus then on a business perspective, you got portion control. So you ain't putting too much cheese on hot sauce, much on hot dogs. So,
Yeah. Well, they already don't put enough cheese on your nachos. I mean, they don't.
no,
they
not
do.
at
That's my
all,
big
man.
complaint. But yeah. Well, and I also wonder too, like, and this maybe gets to something that Dwayne kind of hinted at too. Like, I think the in-home viewing experience is, at least for me, like I haven't been to a football game in a long time. And it's just because it's just easier for me to stay home and watch it, like on my big screen TV and HD with sound. And like, I have all the stuff I need. I don't have to wait in line to go to the restroom. You know what I mean? Like, and granted, like that's harder to do when it's Oregon. Like Tulsa, you're like, yeah, okay. But I just wonder if that kind of creeps into it too, of like, okay, I want to go, but I have all these things at home and now they're not providing the service that I want. So I'm just going to stay home because it's not a premier opponent, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, what's funny about that is the graduate students, it's kind of like they tend college football to the undergrads. Once you become out of that and a graduate, you're kind of like, man, I could stay at home. This would be a whole
Yeah,
lot.
for sure.
I got mess with nobody.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, I'm with
Even when
you.
I was an undergrad student, I knew plenty of people who'd rather tailgate outside the stadium than actually go inside the stadium to watch the game
Mhm.
because they felt more comfortable, in their own little slot. And that's even when I was a freshman, sophomore. Like, why would I go inside a stadium full of people, at 120 degrees when I could sit in a tent drinking,
Yeah.
whatever alcohol of my choice, watching the game.
Right. And I think the challenge too is like for even the premier schools like Alabama, Clemson, whoever you want to say, Ohio State, they really only have 2 or 3 marquee games every year. You know what I mean? Like, Alabama's going to pretty well march through the SEC, but when they play Auburn, that's going to be, Auburn, Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss, like, those handful of games. So like, I think it's really going to get interesting for these athletic departments because outside of those marquee matchups, I continue to see pretty empty stadiums or like people leaving early, and the service issues I think will just compound that.
Yeah.
And with that, will that push these marquee schools to kind of like push for those network deals like the SEC network, Big Ten network kind of thing where, okay, we're not making as much money on the live gate in the live deal. Like, let's push for more money through the network deals and stuff.
Yeah, through the media rights.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. So I think that was a good episode. We got a lot of different things in there, and really just appreciate you guys, and thought we, look forward to more episodes and more good content around sports. And so thanks everybody for hopping into Sports with Doc and Dudes, and we will see you down the road.